You have spent your entire life believing you are your body. Every fear you carry, every limitation you accept, every identity you cling to, rests on that single assumption. And people who have clinically died and come back are telling us, consistently across cultures and decades, that the assumption is wrong. By the end of this, the boundary between who you think you are and who you actually are will feel a lot thinner than it does right now. Start with what happens in the room. The heart stops, blood pressure drops to zero, brain activity flatlines. By every medical definition, the person is gone. And yet, when they're revived minutes later, they describe experiences so vivid, so structured, so coherent that they make waking life feel dull by comparison. They describe conversations that happened in other rooms, objects placed on high shelves they couldn't have seen, specific details confirmed by surgeons and nurses who were present. This alone should give anyone pause. But the real mystery runs deeper than verified perceptions. During cardiac arrest, the people who come back are different. Fundamentally, measurably different. Career executives abandon six-figure salaries to become hospice volunteers. Lifelong atheists develop a spiritual practice within weeks. People who struggled with addiction for decades lose the craving entirely, as if someone reached into their operating system and deleted the program. Researchers at the University of Virginia's Division of Perceptual Studies have documented these shifts across thousands of cases. The personality changes hold. They persist years, sometimes decades after the event. These aren't grief reactions or trauma responses. Trauma typically narrows personality. It creates rigidity, avoidance, contraction. Whatever is happening to these people moves in the opposite direction: expansion, openness, a strange and unshakable certainty about the nature of reality. So what exactly are they experiencing that rewrites them so completely? The accounts share a structure that crosses every demographic boundary. A sensation of separating from the physical body, a movement through darkness toward light. An encounter with a presence, sometimes described as a being, sometimes as pure love, sometimes as an intelligence so vast that language collapses under the weight of describing it. And then a life review. Every moment they lived, replayed, but with a twist that changes everything. They feel the experience from the perspective of every person they ever affected. The sharp word they said to a co-worker in passing. They feel the sting land, the moment of patience with a stranger. They feel the relief wash through someone else's chest. Every kindness, every cruelty, experienced from the receiving end. People come back from this and they can't unsee it. You wouldn't be able to either. The materialist position says this is all hallucination, oxygen deprivation, a dying brain firing random signals. And that explanation deserves honest engagement, because if it's true, then everything these people report is neurological noise. The problem is that dying brains don't produce enhanced cognition, they produce confusion, fragmented imagery, chaos. What near-death experiences describe is the opposite. Hyper-lucid awareness, structured narrative, verified external perceptions, and memories so stable they remain unchanged 30 years later. Hallucinations degrade over time. They shift, morph, lose coherence with each retelling. NDE memories behave like memories of real events. Brain scans confirm this. The neural signature of an NDE memory matches the signature of a lived experience and differs markedly from imagined or hallucinated ones. There's a detail that rarely gets the attention it deserves. Some of the most vivid, most complex near-death experiences occur during periods of complete cortical inactivity. Zero measurable brain function, the instrument reads flat, and yet consciousness continues, often with greater clarity than ordinary waking awareness. If consciousness is produced by the brain the way a factory produces goods, then shutting down the factory should stop production. What these cases suggest is a different relationship entirely. The brain as receiver, as filter, as a tuning instrument that narrows consciousness rather than generating it. William James proposed this model over a century ago. The brain, he suggested, is a reducing valve. Consciousness in its raw form is too vast, too unbounded for the practical demands of physical survival. The brain's job is to limit it, to focus the infinite into something manageable, a single point of view, a body, a name, a personal history. When the brain goes offline during clinical death, the filter lifts. And what floods in is the full spectrum. This reframes everything about your daily experience. That tight sense of being a separate self, locked inside a skull, looking out through two eyes at a world that exists apart from you. That sensation is the filter working. The boundary between you and everything else is functional, useful, necessary for navigating physical reality. It's the brain doing its job. But the boundary is constructed, maintained, generated moment by moment by a 3-pound organ that requires constant blood flow and glucose to keep the walls in place. Remove the blood flow, and the walls come down. People who've had that experience describe it as coming home. They use that word with striking consistency. Home. As if waking life is a foreign territory, and the expanded state is where they actually belong. And when they return to the body, they bring something back. Enhanced intuition, sudden artistic or musical ability in people who never showed any talent before. Heightened empathy so intense it borders on telepathic. They walk into a room and feel what everyone in it is feeling. Electrical sensitivity that shorts out watches and interferes with electronic devices. These aren't anecdotal oddities from a handful of cases, they're documented patterns across the research literature. Something is being carried back across the threshold, and it doesn't fit neatly into any existing medical framework. Consider what this implies about the abilities you currently have access to. If consciousness operates through the brain rather than from it, then your current range of perception, creativity, and knowing represents a fraction of what's available. The fraction your filter is currently set to allow. Every spiritual tradition on earth has said this in different language. You are more than you appear to be. You are more than the body. The kingdom of heaven is within you. Thou art that. The mystics weren't being poetic. They were being precise. The question that should be keeping you up at night is, do you have to die to experience this? The research suggests you don't. Meditation practitioners who reach deep states report strikingly similar perceptual shifts. Boundary dissolution, encounters with light expanded awareness, life review-like experiences where past events are seen from new perspectives. The overlap between advanced meditative states and near-death experiences is so significant that some researchers have proposed they access the same underlying territory. The difference is method. One arrives through the shutdown of the body, the other arrives through the deliberate quieting of the mind. Both accomplish the same thing: they reduce the activity of the filter. This is where the practical application lives. Every time you sit in silence and let the mental chatter slow down, you're loosening the valve. Every time you move into a state of deep presence, fully here, fully now, the internal narrator momentarily quiet, you're widening the aperture. The glimpses come first as intuition, a knowing that precedes logic, a sense of connection that doesn't require physical proximity, a creativity that feels like it's arriving from somewhere rather than being manufactured by effort. You felt this already. That moment when the right words came out of your mouth before you had time to think them. When you knew who was calling before the phone lit up. When a decision that made no rational sense turned out to be exactly right. Those moments are the filter thinning. Consciousness leaking through the cracks of its own reducing valve. The near-death experiences carry one message back with almost universal consistency, and it cuts against nearly everything modern culture teaches. The accumulation of material wealth, status, and external achievement registered as meaningless during their life review. What registered, what generated the most intense, overwhelming waves of feeling, were small moments of genuine connection, a hand on someone's shoulder at the right time, a moment of full attention given to a child, patience offered when irritation would have been easier. The currency of the expanded state is love, and the word has been so overused and diluted that saying it almost feels embarrassing. But they come back insistent, fierce about it. Whatever they encountered on the other side reorganized their entire value system around that single axis, and decades of normal life afterward can't shake it loose. You are walking around inside a body that is filtering an infinite field of consciousness down to a pinhole. The personality you think is fixed, the limitations you think are permanent, the identity you've built and defended for years, all of it is the pinhole talking. The people who have been pulled through clinical death and returned aren't special. They just had the filter forcibly removed for a few minutes. What they saw on the other side changed them because it was more real than anything the filter had ever shown them. You don't need a cardiac arrest to start widening the aperture. You need stillness. You need the willingness to sit with the discomfort of not knowing, to let the internal narrator run out of things to say, to stay present in the gap that opens when the mind finally stops performing its endless narrowing function. The mystics mapped this territory centuries ago. The near-death researchers are confirming it with hospital data and EEG readings. The testimony is converging from every direction. Your body is a lens. What it's focused on right now is a choice, and most of that choosing is happening beneath your awareness, on autopilot, running patterns you inherited before you could speak. The invitation from every person who has crossed that threshold and returned is the same. You can adjust the focus while you're still alive. Start today. Sit still. Breathe. Let the walls get thin. What's on the other side already knows your name.